So if you want to play fast, I think you need to have the ability to do a lot of things that are easy.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the women's assistant coach at Wright State University, John Leonzo. Coach Leonzo is going into his 7th season of coaching. After the 2020-21 season, he won the WBCA 30 Under 30 award. He's the creator of John Leonzo Basketball, where he shares ideas of how to play with pace and space, create advantages with your pace, and develop skilled players. You can learn more at leonzobasketball.com. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, Coach?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh man, I can't complain. Living the dream is what I like to say. But well, man, hey, thank you so much for doing this, for giving up your time. What I love about the basketball community, and especially on Twitter, is one, I mean, you just get to learn from so many people, and you happen to be like-minded in the way that you view offense and the way that you teach, but also just you're a great follow. And so this is just purely from wanting to get to talk with you more. So I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate you asking me. And obviously, if there's anything I can share that's helpful, I'd be more than happy to do that. So,
yeah. So right off the bat, I mean, you get to not only coaching in college, but also, you know, the platform that you have in teaching the game. You get to talk to a lot of coaches, observe a lot of leaders. What's one quality that you see in great leaders?
Yeah, I think whenever you sent me that question, I was racking my mind of like, okay, if I'm around a lot of really cool people and a lot of leaders who I respect, like what's one thing that really sticks out? And the two best leaders that I know, number one is my father. He's pastor of a large church in Pennsylvania, and I was able to see him kind of build that up. And then, right on the same level as Coach Hoffman, who I work for, just a phenomenal leader. And they're both very different, but there's some things they share. And the one trait that they both have in common that I think I admire most is they have a deep love for the people that they lead. And that absolutely fuels every single decision they make, interaction they have. And as somebody who's responsible for a lot of people and overseeing a lot of moving parts, to have that as your guidepost has really been impactful. And so for myself, as a young coach and someone who loves basketball, it's easy for me to get off track, right? Like sometimes I love the game more than I love the people I coach. And so to have those mentors in my life who I can learn and observe from and who challenge me has been really impactful. And I've seen their leadership really help other people flourish.
Yeah, you nailed it. Like, what's the danger of a coach that maybe has a ton of head knowledge, like you said, loves the game, is passionate, loves teaching it, but there is a disconnect from getting to know the players or truly caring about them? What's the danger of it all being about basketball?
Yeah, I think it's easy for us as coaches, and again, I'm speaking to myself more than anybody, but it's easy to get too far zoomed in, and so I think the danger whenever that happens is whenever you're just looking at like this practice in front of me or this skill the player has to improve. What ends up taking place is oftentimes the people that you lead and coach, they feel like they are commodities being used by you to help you get to a certain point, and that's the complete backwards. I guess whenever things are stationed that way, coaching is not working how it should, right? Like as coaches, our job is to use our passion, our knowledge, our position to help elevate the people that are playing for us. And so again, I think the danger of like the game coming first or practice coming first or skills coming first is people become commodities and the relationships view backwards. Whereas our job is to use the time we have with them, however long that may be, the position, the influence we have, to obviously help them have an excellent experience and improving and playing well as part of that. But more importantly, just to create an environment where they can flourish.
Because the opposite of that could be true though too, right? Like you love them and you're building them up, but then not necessarily growing them. And I mean, I just listened to a video of Gino at UConn talking about getting an A in basketball, and part of the player's journey in that, like them doing average working, making a C, a little bit above average, getting a B, and then doing more than others. But then coaching has a part of that, a big part of that to do too. So, I mean, how do you encourage those coaches that, or well, not how do you encourage? Seems to me that coaches that love their players need to continue to grow in their knowledge of the game, and where the type of basketball that they love to teach, and they can follow guys like you, right?
Yeah, well, and again, I think the beautiful part of being a part of a team, whether that's as a player or as a coach and being on the staff, is you can surround yourself with people that help balance you out and help grow you. And I know that, even this past year for us at Wright State, there's 5 people on our staff, and we all work really well together, and all of us have various strengths and weaknesses. And so I think that's what makes being on a team special, is where I'm weak, somebody else can be strong. Maybe where I'm strong, somebody else is weak. And not only can we use those gifts that we've been given and kind of maximize them, but also we can grow in them. And so I think that there is the key, right? And I think that's the benefit of things like this is, you have multiple guests on, people that are experts in something, and we can all just tap into that. And again, hopefully learn and then share. And I think the curiosity and desire to grow also helps that all take place.
That's interesting too. Like when you're building a staff, are you looking for guys that are just like you, in line with what you think, and basically will take whatever that you say and just run with it? And or are you looking for people, like you mentioned, with balance, that will, like, I was a defensive player, but I enjoy coaching offense. I don't have much of a desire to do that. So I hired a varsity assistant that loves that side of the ball. What are your thoughts on that when you're building a staff, on and how important it is to have people that follow your vision, but or people that will kind of have a little friction with what you're doing?
Yeah, so I think I've been fortunate to see Coach Hoffman do a really good job of building a cohesive staff here. And really, I think the answer is both. And I think it's important that and I've seen, fleshed out in how coaches build our staff here, that there's some core things that there has to be alignment on. And that's, big picture culture things. Why are we here? Why are we coaching? Why are we doing what we're doing? What is our goal? I think it's vital that there's alignment there. And then in regard to how you play, it's also important to have alignment there to a degree of, we're all one band, one sound, preaching the same message. But then behind closed doors, I think there is a lot of value in just having multiple opinions, people who can sharpen each other to learn and grow and refine what you do, so that you can have multiple years of experience versus 1 year of experience multiple times. And so having those differences is certainly helpful. But again, I think at the core, there has to be a unity and a similar vision. And then obviously for some of those things that maybe are less important, but still do matter, having some balances and differences of opinion are good, provided you can come out united and moving in the same direction.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game. So when I ask this question about what makes your program different, it's interesting with you. You can kind of speak in a few ways here. You could talk about your program that you're a part of in college, or you could talk about the program that you teach and the offensive philosophies and ways, style of play that you share. So I'll kind of leave that up to you. What makes your program different?
Yeah. So where my mind goes to, again, this is probably going to sound just like a big commercial for Coach Hoffman, but she's a phenomenal leader. And I think what makes our program different is just the tone that she sets at the top. And that is that our time here coaching basketball is all about the women on our team and their experience. And their experience, obviously, basketball is a huge part of that. School is a huge part of that. Social is a big part of that. Where they live is a huge part of that. And I think what makes our program different is that every decision that's getting made within our program is being made from the place of how can I help player A, B, C, and D have an excellent experience. And basically what that allows us to do is take that zoomed out perspective where you're not just, so zoomed in and so focused on one practice, one game, one result. And you can be steady and you can really help, kind of guide the growth of your players. And so practically speaking, what that looks like is, like the way that we play, and maybe this is something we talk about later on. A huge reason why we do that is, of course, we believe that's effective, but we also believe that it's fun. And we want our players to have a great experience. We want, practice and games to be a place where the players want to be at. And one of the best ways to do that is to play an upbeat, up-tempo way where the ball's moving around, players are making decisions, everyone's touching it, everyone's making plays for each other. Nobody wants to play, high-low where it's just two guys working together with three people standing around the whole time. There's nothing wrong with high-low, obviously. Bad ball screen offense where it's just a two-person game. That's not a lot of fun either. Both of those styles, when used well, it's a five-man game, no doubt. So how we play really comes into that. The way that we watch film, the way that we try to help our players grow and develop. It's all about how can we help them have a well-rounded experience and grow and be a part of owning their experience. And so again, Coach would tell you that the best 4 years of her life were when she was a college basketball player, and obviously winning, success, being a three-time All-American, all of that plays into it. But the biggest reason she would say that is because of her teammates and coaches. And so again, with that kind of framework in mind, it's just a really helpful guide for her and for the rest of our staff to make sure that we are doing all we can do to make our program be a unique experience and one that's so good that the players don't want it to be over.
Man, it's so cool to hear. I love when I hear college coaches talking about how they actually care about their players enjoying it and having fun. Because I just feel like that's it's maybe 20 years ago, especially when I played. Because I the feeling that I'm a little older than you. I don't know how much, but I played at Baylor, and my first 3 years were for Dave Bliss, who was very much military, no enjoyment. You're going to work your tail off. And that brought a certain level of success. I mean, we were tough and we were organized and prepared. Scott Drew came in my senior year, about the exact opposite. Still prepared and still tough, but music playing in practice, smiling, laughing. And I mean, it was an adjustment period for me. I feel like there's more and more programs going to this. We want you to actually want to show up every day and enjoy it. I mean, why is that major shift? Why are things going that way?
Yeah. So again, for us, I mentioned how Coach Hoffman just approaches it from what's the player's experience like in our program. And so at the end of every year, whether it's in meetings or surveys we send out, we just ask for feedback on, what did you like? What did you not like? One year we asked the girls, what's one thing about the sport that just gives you anxiety? And so, a huge part of that was just we don't know what we're going to walk into every day in practice. Just like there's this unknown. And so, that was one of the things that kind of got our focus. The other thing was just players talking about you just hear someone say I don't think I'm going to ever touch a ball again after I graduate. And, we're thinking to ourselves, okay, something's not right. If they're leaving wanting this to be over, or if they're experiencing anxiety before walking into our building, we have to make some changes. And so this was probably 4 years ago. It just started a series of conversations in the off season of, just basically how can we make practice be a place they want to be? How can we help them grow in their love of the game versus see it as a job and, punch their time card at our level, get their scholarship and then move on.
Right.
And so really that took on a bunch of different forms. One of them was just, posting the practice plan up in the locker room every single day so they could see it. They could walk in, they could see what we're going to cover. They knew what was coming, when it was coming. There's no secrets there. And really all of our practices kind of follow the same shell anyway.
Yeah.
But if that was one thing we could do to at least just put them at ease before they walked on the floor, absolutely would do that. The other thing that we started doing was we started cutting parts out of our practice to just make it be a little bit shorter. And we weren't cutting for the sake of making it short for the sake of appeasing the players. It was more just, okay, how can we be efficient, effective, and get done what we need to get done in a way that is respectful of their time? And, how can we practice in a way that's going to help them learn and grow, but also be enjoyable? And so a lot of the drills that, were breakdown drills where you're just kind of repping things without defense and it's low engagement, it's monotonous, we just got rid of. there's obviously a time and place for that, whether it's like a day that you need to take a bit of a load off and just kind of, get there and get some shots up. But again, we felt like if we can make practice shorter, more competitive, and more direct, there'd be a new level of enjoyment there. And then the third piece is just us as coaches who love the game so much we have to be giving that away and showing that in how we coach. And again, this is something that I feel like I always have to keep coming back to.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get intense. It's so easy to get focused on just what the next thing is. But like, really, I'm doing it because I love it, right? And so that's also just the self check we have to go through often. And so, really, since making those changes, what we found is we've been able to create a really positive environment. And again, for us, it just started with listening to our players and having a heart to make their experience good. And then, obviously, in practice, we were able to make some adjustments, which was really helpful.
Man, so much to unpack there. What do you think about this question? Asking your players uh, from their perspective, do I enjoy coming to practice every day? Do I enjoy being in the gym with them? I'd be interested to see how my players like. I mean, there's maybe been years where they would answer, "Yeah, it just seemed like you. There's nowhere else you'd want to be as a coach."
Mm-hmm.
Or there might be years where they said, you just kind of look pissed off every day. And
Sure.
like you really, really didn't like us very much. And
Mm-hmm.
that might be a powerful question. Will you go back to what was the question you asked about anxiety? What was that one again?
Yeah, we just asked the girls if there was anything about playing that caused them anxiety. And it was anonymous. They could just write out whatever they wanted to. And that was just the common thread that we saw. And again, we just wanted to be sure that how can we make it a place that they want to be? And if there's anything that is really, generating too much pressure or
Yeah.
causing them to relate a bad experience with what should be a fun activity, we just want to go ahead and eliminate.
You mentioned the knowing what was coming or not knowing what was coming was developing some of those feelings. And with this today's generation, man, I can't think of a more important question to ask them than that,
Hmm.
because social media and the fear of being left out or seeing what others are doing, the comparison game that's happening, it's creating just a mental place for our players. That's just it's changed to me. Just even in 5 to 10 years, it seems like it's really changed.
Or
That question's huge. If you don't mind sharing, what were some of the other concerns? This is anonymous, but what were some of the other
yeah,
concerns that they had?
I'm gonna have to rack my brain
Okay.
and try to think back that far because it was a handful of years ago. Player performance was a big one as well of just not being good enough.
Mm,
And again, I think that's another thing when it comes to trying to create an environment that the players do enjoy being in. There has to be a level where like we're both on the same mission, right? And so like we have to adjust and adapt what we do, but the players also they have to learn how to love it every day. And so what are some things that we can do to help them? And so with some of the players, it just meant trying to have process directed conversations, to where again, you're taking a long view. You're looking at the season as a whole, the growth from last year to this year, shining a light on how they are improving every day in practice. I think that's really important, especially for players that don't play much. We're always trying to figure out how can we score practice or keep track of this or that. So these players that aren't in the game, who don't have their name in the box score, how can they tangibly see improvement? And then it's also just trying to generate, conversations where, we as a staff are sharing what we're grateful for. We're asking them those same questions as well. And so I think in those one-to-one conversations, you can also help players grow a little bit,
yeah.
to learn to love it, even if it is a hard day or even if they maybe don't have it all there. I think that's also part of our job in regard to helping athletes enjoy it.
Yeah. With how intentional you guys seem to be, I would imagine that your culture is pretty special, but a lot of coaches, I think, desire the kind of culture you're talking about. But you're right. You've got to help your players. They play a part in it as well. So like we can't just take all the responsibility off of them and just feed them, feed them, feed them. Like we want them to be wild animals too, not just zoo animals. But then there's a part of all the steps that you guys have taken. I mean, it's just super special. And I think if a coach asks, how do I have a special culture? You got to do and take a lot of the steps that you guys have taken, or be intentional about it.
Absolutely. And again, I think all of that starts at the top. I heard this like 2 days ago. It was a coach who just said like you can't give away that what you don't possess, right? And so
Gannon Baker.
yeah, yeah. Like I can tell you who I heard it from or where I heard
Oh
it,
yeah.
but like that's embedded in me. And again, I've seen that like in good leaders. I've seen that in my father. I've seen that in Coach Hoffman. And again, there as coaches, that's why it is important to keep feeding ourselves the right thing so we can keep giving that away to our players.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said at the very beginning about loving, like loving your players. If you really don't love them, or if you don't have that love in your heart or that capacity for care in other human beings, then it's going to be really hard to share that
Absolutely.
or create that kind of culture. So, yeah, ultimately, what are you putting into your mind and your heart every day that's going to make you care more about the people?
Absolutely.
Man, that's huge, coach. That stuff is fun and important that we got to talk about. But part of me was itching to get to this question: what style of
Sure.
play do you like to teach? Because of the alignment that you and I have, but always looking to find better language, more precise ways of teaching that can help connect with players. So, have at it, coach. What's your favorite style?
Yeah, yeah. So whenever I hear any basketball question that's general about style of play, I hear that as like offense. That's just like
Oh
my
yeah, yeah.
natural bent, and so that there is primarily what I'll share about. But
I don't know. I don't know how many. This is funny. I don't know how many coaches I'm going to search out, like I searched you out, that are defensive gurus.
sure.
And I may have just. I don't know how many people listen to this. I might have just lost like half of them right there. But no, that you're right. Like style of play offensively. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, and so the way that we like to play here is very much free. Again, talking about like what is a way that how can we make sure that the players are having a great experience? And so, for us, it's going to be very up tempo, floor is spaced, balls moving around quickly. We're making 1 second decisions. That's a term we talk about a ton in our program. And we just want to make the game easy. I think here for us and our skill development, we're kind of going through each spring and refining what we teach, how we teach it, what we emphasize. And the one thing that's missing that maybe some people do is like we don't do a lot of one-on-one really anything.
Mm.
We don't teach any finishes where I'm getting by my primary defender, or I'm sorry, where like help comes and I Euro step around them. For us, if help comes, the ball goes. If I can't make an attack off the catch, I move it. There's
Mm.
not a lot of one-on-one play within that. And we love here team basketball where it's five people operating as one, the ball flying around, possessions where I give it up and then eventually I get it back to score. That's so fun to watch, so fun to teach, and I think again really fun to play, and that's kind of what we're all about here on the offensive end.
All right. So I do know dribble drive motion is something that you show and teach. You have some great videos, and we'll talk a little bit more about your platform at the end. What are just I've heard that dribble drive motion. A coach down here at North Crowley, Tommy Brackle, is in Texas. A DFW is kind of one of the old school dribble drive motion guys. And we
Mm-hmm.
were having a talk, and he said now it's become really even more the offense behind whatever offense that we
Yeah,
run, meaning those concepts can bleed over. So, what are some of your main dribble drive motion concepts that you like to teach?
yeah. So you took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what we've referred to it here as like the offense behind our offense. So essentially for us, like we're going to be in dribble drive after action is over, or if we have an advantage in transition and we don't get anything out of that initially, it's just how we keep playing. So really, there's just a few principles that have to be in play, and this is actually why we play this way. Zooming out like beyond like the specific offense, we want to play in such a way where players have the freedom to attack and score on every single catch.
Hmm.
And so when the ball hits my hands, the very first thing I'm looking to do is shoot it. So catch to shoot, want to get our eyes on the rim. Not saying I have to, but when my chest is facing the basket, when my eyes find the rim, I can now make any play that I want to make on the floor. And then obviously,
Right
fire.
there, coach. Right there, coach. Doesn't that just transform your skill work and the
Mm-hmm.
buy-in of your players? The fact that they all believe that, or they've been told that if you do have space on the catch and you're prepared and you're ready, that I mean, to me, the buy-in across the board. Why should I get shots up? Because I'm actually going to be allowed to shoot it. That's a
Exactly.
shift from many programs. So sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, perfectly. And then the second element to that is if I can't shoot because I have a hard closeout, I want to react to attack. And so that's how we play off the catch. And it's really important to us that whatever our flow game might be, and again, here it's dribble drive, we have to be able to do that on every single catch. I think if there's an offense where maybe there's two post players on the block and I throw it, and now on my catch, I've got to like get low and rip through and look at that post player. I have access to none of that. And so as we're looking for an offense to use, it has to be one that always has space and freedom to play off the catch first and foremost. The third element to how we want to play is after we've reacted to attack, it's drive to score or pass to where the help came from. And so again, there, the floor has to be balanced and aligned to make those decisions possible. And then basically what's going to end up happening if I pass the ball to where the help came from is we're right back to square one, catch to shoot, react to attack. And so dribble drive naturally allows us to play out of those principles by just following a really simple and easy pattern.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I like about it is like you can play freely and the mentality can be scoring focused because it's not intricate in regard to like where you go or how you move. Now, a knock to that could be it's easy to scout, and I don't disagree with that whatsoever.
Still got to guard it.
The 100%, right? Like Randy Sherman, Radius Athletics, he says like, be easy to scout and hard to beat. And that's exactly what, like when it comes to the dribble drive, maybe you can pick up on it, but like exactly what you said, can you guard it? And, we believe that there's nothing harder to guard than a good player in space.
Yeah.
And we're just creating a lot of those scenarios as often as we possibly can.
I think all of us coaches, we need to really write out what we believe and what we teach and start to eliminate things and see if there's ways that stickier language that we can use. Mm-hmm. And so anytime I get to talk and I hear some new things, it gets me kind of excited. Awesome. When in transition, are you running to spots? Do you have a secondary break? Are you rim running? Like kind of, because there's some different ideas and philosophies there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So if you want to play fast, I think you need to have the ability to do a lot of things that are easy. And so essentially for us, what we've always done is our break has been different after a stop or after we get scored on. And so essentially the hardest part with teaching transition is you never know where people are going to be when it's getting started.
Yeah.
Depending on who the other team is, what they run, your five could be at the rim. They could be out guarding on the perimeter. Who knows where they're going to be.
That's a good point.
So I think a key skill, regardless of whether you're a, primary break, run to these spots or number break rather, or whether you're kind of letting the free for all go, the ability to generate space out of chaos is a really important element, at least at the start. For us, what we end up doing is basically after a missed shot, our players have more general roles and freedom to go with whatever spot on the floor is natural. So for our girls, that would be like our runners, we call them, who are, the first ones down the floor. After a made bucket, certain people are going to certain spots. After a missed bucket, where's the closest sideline? I'm running to that corner. And if we're both on the same side, no big deal whatsoever. Same thing for our five-man. If she's ahead of the ball and the outlet's behind her, run to the rim. You can get ahead of it, no problem. If she's the one who grabs the rebound and gets a deep outlet to our point guard, now she's going to trail to the top of the key, and we've got some automatics that we can run that way. So that would be kind of how we approach a missed shot. Where there's a little more flexibility, but still similar spacing and alignments. And we're doing that so we can get down the floor as fast as possible. After a made bucket, we're going to have a certain person take the ball out, the ball be outletted to a certain person, specific girls going to specific spots, so that if we don't have an immediate advantage as we push the ball, we've got quick action that's like an automatic, and then we're flowing into dribble drive from there. And so I think, with transition offense, obviously the ability to have that chaos defensively and then get organized space immediately is really important, but then also the ability to keep playing when you come down the floor, regardless of what that alignment would be, and not have to pull the ball out,
no pause
around.
Yeah,
I think that's where transition is at its best. And teams that we've had that have been really successful, they have excelled in scoring, with like one pass flag the floor, but where the best teams have been are those ones who can just flow and never stop. And you're running transition offense for 26 seconds, basically.
Love that. Is positionless basketball more difficult in college, where you feel like you need to have more of the traditional number set, but then also players that fit those molds? Because in high school, I mean, we're positionless and it's been fun. I'm obviously a small private school, and we don't recruit, so not a lot of choices. It's whoever shows up at my school. But it's been fun for us to be able to kind of all train, even though I had somebody use I think, a coach use the example of a buffet. You know, they can all go to the same buffet, but they're not all allowed to eat the same thing or eat the same amount of food or
Sure.
something like that. What are your thoughts? Is it difficult in college to do that?
Yeah, it just depends on how good you are, quite honestly. And I think even what league you might be in. For us, we're a mid major, we're in the Horizon League. The goal every year is what? Win the tournament and go to the NCAA tournament. And so a lot of your decisions on how we're going to play is designed of how are we going to win our league. And
Yeah,
so there you have to be weighing, okay, the best teams in our league, what do they look like? Can we, do we have to mirror and model them to beat them? Or, if they're going to, zig, do we need to zag?
yeah,
And so that's always a hard balance to take and strike. For us, basically, we are positionless at the 2, 3, and 4. The 1 and the 5 are a little bit different. And again, multiple people can play all those different spots, but with just what we ask them to do from like a creating an advantage standpoint, it's important for us to have two people in those roles that we think are pretty smart and unique.
hmm,
Um, but there is so much value. And again, the best teams we've had point guards that can go play the 2, 3, or 4, or a 3 who can move to the 1 whenever we sub. And just having that flexibility means so much. There also is a level to which we're, I think, always trying to, a benefit to being positionless, I think, is you're going to work on skills more in practice.
yeah.
Whenever you are position heavy, I feel like there's just a million things you can work on with the guards and a very small menu of what you can do with the post players. And so, like, whoever's working with the post, they don't want to do skill development because they're just tired of it. The post players are tired of it. The guards can't get enough of it, right? And so, the more positionless you get, I think, now everyone's doing a little bit of everything, and that's what we do. Even though there's different roles in the game, everyone does everything,
Yeah.
and that allows us then, as our players do grow, to become a little more versatile. And so maybe now for our 5 who's in a lot of pick and roll, those are turning into pick and pops. Or when we do trail the play and we throw it to them at the top of the key, they're no longer thinking like swing it or reverse it with a dribble handoff. They're thinking, can I shoot this? Can I attack this closeout? And as they go to new levels, our offense goes to new levels. And so I think there is an element to which you need to be trying to develop your team to be as positionless as possible while still having a structure that can protect players if they're not quite there yet. And I think we've been able to find a pretty good balance of both here in our program.
You said something a little bit ago that I think is a common misconception to teams that uh, play with freedom and play with pace is that there's no structure or it's not organized. You're just rolling the ball out. Sure, I think there's some of those programs that maybe they just have so much talent that there is a little bit more of that, just
Mm-hmm.
allowing them just to find their own way. But I would argue, and maybe you agree that uh, to play the way you're talking about, everybody has to be. It's heavily organized. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to be on the same page, or else if there's no double or triple gaps and you're not organized, you're going to have single gaps with people really being stuck. Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think structure is super important, not just so that you can make sure you can keep playing, but also so you can play fast. And I think that's the biggest thing for us is if we're going to play with 1 second decisions off the catch, we need to have a structure that's organized and allows us
You
to
can't
do
have
that.
people in the way.
Exactly. Exactly. And the other piece with that is like we always want our girls thinking score on the catch. And so if you give them 6 different options when they catch the ball, where does scoring rank, right? And so by simplifying and by having a set structure that is very easy, they always know what's next. They know what the reads are if they can't score, but allows them to have that freedom to play that way first and foremost. And so I think anybody that's ever played in our program would tell you that it's very structured and maybe even somewhat too structured. Um, at times for certain players. But again, I think there's always a little bit of tension early on where like we're pretty picky about our fundamentals, about our skills, about how we play, about doing this the exact right way. And then as they get a little more comfortable, we really start to peel back and allow for a little more freedom of if you see that play, go make that play. So I think there's always a balance there. And again, I think as a coach, that's one of the areas I need to grow in is like I don't feel like I do not coach cutting very well. My answer is always just get away from each other, stay spaced, like give that ball room. But I think some players are really instinctual, and that's a great skill of theirs. And so I just think there's a really fine
You're
line there.
talking about the random cuts off the ball towards the
Mhm.
basket. I can't.
Absolutely.
I always tell them, like, guys, you can't go rover. And if my guys at my school haven't seen semi-pro where Will Ferrell just runs in a circle and he says,
Yep.
"I'm going rover, coach." Yeah, you just can't go rover. But you're right. How do we set up an environment where, like, players have to do what they see,
Hmm.
and when they see something, and maybe it's the right choice, them having the freedom to do that is important.
Yeah, and I think the other balance I think that we try to strike with our players is what they see matters, but also what the ball can see matters, and that's where with cutting, like, yeah, you have a backdoor cut available, but if the ball is not seeing you, if the player with the ball has no vision on that, your cut that maybe could create an advantage, we're not able to utilize because the player with the ball is not on the same page, and so that's just an area where a lot of our skill work, a lot of our breakdowns we're playing 2-on-2, we're playing 3-on-3, we're setting the drill up to start in a certain way that we're going to get to work on those skills and those reads that we are trying to make, so that the players can learn how to play with the player beside them to read, to be free, but also to be staying within the structure of what we do so that the other 3 or 4 players off the ball, they can keep playing as well.
Yeah. You mentioned this a few times, scoring off the catch, scoring off the catch. Uh, when do you teach, or do you teach a split catch with your feet already ready to rip and go? Or are you always 10 toes or whatever, but prepared to shoot, but then having the ability to rip? Or do you teach the split? What are your thoughts there?
Yep. So that there's a really good example of like one thing that we're pretty structured with at first. And then as we get better at it, we kind of take our hands off of it. And so the way that we're going to teach all of our skill work at the start off the catch is going to be a 3-part process where we catch, we peak, and then we attack. Now, no doubt, there's times where that's the wrong way to go about it. We fully understand that, but I think probably whatever percentage, the majority of the closeouts that we get in a game, we're going to be needing to attack that way. And so we start there all the time. And then as soon as we have our footwork down, our catch is right, the way that we're looking for those skills to look like, then we talk about quick reads where you're reading before the catch what you're going to get into. And that's where that, go and catch mentality almost starts to show up. And so that was a
Yeah.
big part of what we did this spring. We had a few returners from our team, and all year long, we never even touched it. But then this spring, with those guys who have been in the program for a little bit, we worked a lot on reading before the catch against a longer closeout or a sideways closeout. And just finding that balance between where, like, the defender will tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And the earlier you can get that information, the better off you're going to be.
The reading before the catch, one, it's difficult. I mean, I don't know at what level of play, or maybe even at high school players, you can drill that, or a few guys will have it. But I'm always worried about predetermined movements.
Hmm.
Like, no matter what they're doing, this is what I'm doing. And I've seen
Correct.
that happen with the split catch a little bit more, where the read was to shoot, but you had it in your mind to already get low and push.
Right.
How do you guide players through that, where we're trying to read the catch, but also you got to be in the moment and make sure you have the ability to maybe do multiple things?
Yeah. So a few things there. I think, again, number one, this is always a dichotomy where you want players to play fast off the catch, but sometimes playing too fast off the catch doesn't let your spacing develop enough, so the ball
Yeah.
has nowhere to go or any room to breathe. And so, one of the questions I get a ton from dribble drive coaches is like, what do you do when teams switch? I pass to you, I cut in front of you, you're driving off of my backside. A lot of teams will just switch that. Well, but the answer I want to give, and it's difficult, is like there should be no ability to switch, because number one, I should be flying through as fast as I possibly can. But number two, if you're catching and you're looking to shoot first, that brief pause that you're going to take is letting my cut clear. And
Mm,
it's also letting you get guarded. And so now those two bodies aren't passing. So again, there's a general rhythm to playing fast that I think players need to find. And the way that we're going to teach attacking off the catch starts there. What we then begin to work on is those longer closeouts you have to attack where there's already an advantage present. Those are much easier reads to make because you have so much time to read that recovering
yeah.
defender. So a really easy one would be, like a baseline drift pass, right? Like the opposite corner, their defender's in low I. that's a mile long closeout. You're normally going to be making your decision versus somebody else recovering and rotating down. And that might be a catch and swing. It might be a catch and shoot. It might be a catch and go. But because of the length of the closeout, the decision's a lot easier. And so that's another thing we're always just talking about is short closeouts versus long closeouts. And as much as we can versus short closeouts, we want to catch the shoot and play with the pace we normally do versus longer closeouts or disadvantaged closeouts. That's where we're going to be making those decisions and those reads before the catch.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. There's so many great shooting games or drills, and some coaches will ask me like, what's the difference, or what do you want, a drill or a game? So drills a lot of times I feel like have to do with your offensive flow and maybe even breakdowns within 2 or 3 players, but getting shots up. But games have a time component, a score component, some type of competitive nature that in a rows that they have to make. And there's so many great ones. But coach, if you were going to walk in with your players, and what's your favorite? What would be their favorite that you take them through?
Yeah, so hard for me to pick only one.
I know.
Can I give you more than one? I guess.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Give me your top few. Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to just individual shooting drills where I'm going to get my reps up, you mentioned time scored, multiples in a row. This is a drill that we got from Drew Hanlon. I don't know what he calls it, but I know we changed the name.
Nice.
So if anyone that does know it's listening, just bear with me. But we call it two-phase shooting. And we do that because there's 2 phases to the drill. And it's a little confusing for us to explain if we don't break it up into phases. And so basically there's 3 minutes on the clock. Your goal is to get done with both phases before the clock reaches 0. In phase 1, you're shooting from the 5 spots, and you need to make three 3-point shots in a row to move to the next one. So 3 from the corner, 3 from the wing, 3 from the top of the key, 3 from the opposite wing, 3 from the opposite corner. When you've got that done, phase 1 is complete. You now enter phase 2. Phase 2 is what you're doing on the way back, and that clock is still ticking. So in phase 2, you have to make 5 shots in a row, 1 from each of the 5 spots. So you have to go corner, wing, top, wing, corner consecutively. And if you miss a shot in phase 2, you restart it. So now there's a little of a conditioning component coming in there as well.
Yeah.
And so we normally start off with everybody making 2 in a row versus 3 in a row there in phase 1. And then the minute somebody beats it, okay, you're now a player that you have to get 3 in a row.
Oh, I like that.
And so
they graduate and they
exactly,
move up. Yeah.
Exactly. So we can kind of differentiate the challenge there. We had a girl at our former school get it done with I think a minute 47 left with hitting 3 in a row. I don't think she missed a single shot. Had a great rebounder. All of our drills as well they're 1 ball, 1 rebounder. That does matter for the timing and the scoring, but it's just, a really good challenge. You can do it by yourself or with a partner. And that's one that we really like from just like a reps standpoint. The other piece when it comes to shooting drills that I do think matters is the decision of should I or should I not shoot. And so that's a skill where, in the 2-phase drill, on your very first rep, like, you have to figure out how hard do I need to shoot this? How far am I from the bucket? Your reps after that are basically automatic. And so the carryover would be a little smaller. But then you're dealing with the mental component of getting frustrated on a miss or whatever. So there is value in that, no doubt. But we also like to do a lot of decision shooting drills in our practices. And the one that we use, because I probably if I could only have picked one drill to do, I would do this because it's so multifaceted. But it's just, we call it 4-on-3 shooting. I have the video on my website that I can refer people to later. But basically, there's 4 offensive players filling the traditional 4 spots, 2 slots, 2 corners. There's 3 defensive players, and you can really put them wherever you like, and then a coach under the basket. And so we'll put 1 or 2 minutes on the clock. The time is up to you. 3s are 3s, 2 are 2s. You throw the ball out. And I got this idea from Chris Oliver. We mandate that they dribble or that they drive the first or second pass. So if I throw it to you, coach, you have to drive that thing. If you don't, you swing it, and then that player drives. But now the defense has to rotate over and stop the ball, or else we're going to get a layup. Everybody else is kind of trying to cover a player and a half. And then our offensive players, they're rotating according to our penetration reaction principles. And so whatever, that possession goes on there. We give the defense 1 point for every tip. The offense, twos are twos, threes are threes. And whenever our time is up, the two sides flip. And so the defense is playing hard, number one, because they have to make up the difference whenever they go to offense. Number two, they're trying to get free points by tips. We're able to work on not just shooting, but the decision to shoot, as well as shooting off the spacing movements that we're making frequently within our offense. And so we do that one a ton. And you can do 3-on-2, 2-on-1, 4-on-3. I think 4-on-3 is probably the most game like. But I really enjoy that one and do it often. And we've done it, part of our pregame warm up as well as a practice activity. So
that's good. And they also are working on defense during that time. So maybe you can take a little bit out of shell, a little time out of shell, and know that they are learning to react, work on the flight of the ball, read based on what their teammates are doing, think one step ahead. I think there's two sides to that for sure. How does we've hit this quite a bit, but I'll let you go a little deeper. How does individual skill development work into your daily practice, especially because you run this free flowing attacking offense?
Yeah, so player development is really everything to us. It's a huge part of our recruiting pitch. Not even just to high schoolers, but also transfers. Like, we recruited a few grad transfers this year who have 1 year left, and that was one of the first things we said to them is like, we want this year to be your best year and the year you've had the most growth. We have no interest in you just kind of coming in here, throwing in the towel for 1 year, playing well and leaving. We want to be maximizing your skill. And so, again, that comes back to enjoyment, right? Of like, you enjoy every day if you know you're getting better. And so the way that we break it down in our program, we're very fortunate with a larger staff, is each coach kind of has a position group. And really that's just a cheap way for us to break down who works with who. Again, we are basically positionless. Outside
your twos, threes, and fours with those coaches are probably doing similar things.
100%, and really even similar stuff that maybe the point guards are doing as well. But regardless, within those groups, we do a handful of things. Number one, we do about 20 minutes of small group skill work before each practice on a normal day. We also do a film review with those guys, and so that's just a really helpful way for us to have some touch points. Some of those questions I spoke about earlier and helping the players grow, to learn to love it. Like, we can be asking in those meetings. We check up on academics in there as well. So player development, really, the way we structure it, allows us to have a lot more development even outside of the floor.
I like that.
So basically, that's kind of how we have it structured. That's when we work on it. But then we're really aligned as a staff in regard to what we're teaching, how we're teaching, and why we're teaching. So like, literally right here to my left, I have a one piece of paper that has every single skill we teach, every single element of our offense, every single drill that we teach, all on one spot. That way we can, again, same teaching points, one band, one sound, we can be aligned.
Man, that's good.
It's going to be a thing where, potentially we can even rotate players and they're not going to be being told something different or whatever. And really the reason we do that more than anything is so that we can be really good at the things that happen a lot within how we play. So I think if I could tell coaches to do anything, it would be, number one, like, develop a curriculum of what you teach, how you teach it, and why you teach it. So that would be the 3 parts to that. And the other one would be figure out a set program or rhythm that can be a part of your everyday life of your program. For us, it's just those small groups. So that's what like individual development would look like. But then it's also a huge part of just how we practice. I mentioned, again, trying to practice in a way that's fun, a way that's enjoyable, a way that's working on the things that matter. Player development's everything. That we had a really rough year here this past year from a wins and losses standpoint. It was our first year in the program. And we did have a lot of player growth that was great. Our depth wasn't quite where it needed to be, but that was one of the things we just kept saying as a staff is like, we're going to be good when we're good, and there's no shortcut there. So let's keep kind of chopping away and hammering home.
I love that. That's good.
These things that we believe in, and not try to find some quick fix. Because again, ultimately, those quick fixes stunt your players' long-term growth. They're not as enjoyable. And so I think player development is something that we have fully committed to, we're fully bought into, and it's 100% necessary for us to excel in order to have success and results on the court. But again, a lot of that comes from just a desire as a staff to help our players grow and be their best, and to graduate from our program feeling like every single ounce of their potential and ability we were able to pull out of them, and they're leaving loving it. And so that's kind of how we approach it.
One big takeaway for me with what she said was that player development or skill development isn't just on the floor. Like, it's in those small group meetings with coaches, or and I think it's important for us to like we've kind of been talking this whole time, it's got to be more than just basketball, the why behind
Absolutely.
what you're doing. Question for you. So with skill development, I think when people maybe, and coaches my age, maybe a little bit older too, that when they hear skill development, they think two ball, med ball, cones, foam
Hmm.
roll, all the things that are out there. I will say, uh, I, I'm a fan of a lot of those things if it's taught with the game, if there's a game connector with it,
Hmm.
because at the level that I'm at with, you know, I find that they help players know the why or connect things physically quicker. But there's a large group of people that if it's not a part of the actual game, we don't want to do it.
Right.
What's your blend with that, or are you really one way or the other?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as I've grown, I've probably become a little more in the middle. Um, again, I think for us, our desire is to be faithful to what matters and to work on things that are going to have a ton of carryover. And so we do want decision making to be a large part of what we do. We want a lot of our drills to reflect the reads, the spacing, the decisions we're going to make within our offense. And again, that's a luxury we have because we've been doing it as a staff united for a long period of time. We kind of have that alignment. I think there is 100% a time and a place for doing things outside of that, even just from the standpoint of it being different and that helping the player have a new challenge or enjoy something and it not becoming monotonous and routine.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I think if anyone on our staff heard me say that, they would laugh because like I'm always the person who's like stick to the plan,
So
do the
this
same
is
thing every
stretching you a
day.
little bit. This
Um,
is
but
stretching you.
but 100%, I think there's so much value, and I've seen from our head coach on down of just I think today they need something different. And if that means we're doing two ball dribbling, great. If that means that they're doing a shooting drill where there's not a decision to shoot, okay, no problem whatsoever. I think if those things can be fun, enjoyable, if it can stoke their love for the game, and if it can help them, for the long run, I'm all for it. And so
But
I
it's
would
a
say,
balance, though. I mean,
100%.
the balance is what's important because you can go so far that way to where there's no there's no connector at all to how you play and what you do. But
Hmm.
then high school, I find too, like with this idea of viewing high school players as they actually have two seasons now. They have their
Right.
school season and then they have their select season. And those many times are two different voices, different styles. And so I found it helpful for me in our spring, besides weights, besides shots, besides yoga, and maybe
Hmm.
some pickup so that they can actually have fun and have a laboratory to experiment in because it's all structure, structure, structure.
Totally.
Besides all that, how can I teach them skills or ways with the ball in their hand that will help them in whatever they're doing out there? I don't know. That's the balance I'm trying to find, but I don't know if I'm great at
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, and I think part of that too, a big reason why we do things the way that we do, again, like we're doing skill development every single day. And if it's not connected to the reads of our offense and how we play, you're just going to run out of stuff really quick. Like,
Yeah.
especially for us at college, like you've got a girl who's been playing the game since she's 5. So she's been playing for 13 years. Like, you're not going to show her a shooting drill or a ball handling routine she hasn't done before, probably. And so you're just very quickly going to lose them if that's all you're doing. If you're working on dribbling for the sake of dribbling, or passing for the sake of passing, or shooting for the sake of shooting, where we find a lot of our return on investment and skill development is making better reads and decisions within how we play. Part of that is equipping them with the physical skills to complete those. Part of it is helping them mentally with the decision skills. And so, again, I would say 85% of what we do is tied to it, is structured. But again, I think there's absolutely a time and place to break from that, to either help them with something else they may be moving on to, or just giving them a break from the monotony, which again is not a word I want to use, but
Yeah.
the just the structure of how we go about it every single day.
For coaches out there that may not run a free flowing offense where we really want our players to be less connected from us and more connected to each other on the floor and what they're doing and what they're seeing. Maybe this is a coach that runs a lot of plays. Would it be, to me, it would seem to be harder to have skill development be a huge part of what you do if you're running a ton of actions and plays that are for something specific every single time.
Hmm. Yeah, I think probably the biggest place where that would be hard is in shooting drills. Like a lot of our shooting drills are drive, move, kick, shot. If you're a team that runs a lot of set plays, all of your shooting drills probably should be ending with the actions that lead to scores. The issue is there may only be one player that's going to get those touches. And so I think that's probably the benefit, again, of how we're able to see. I think our players improve skill wise, not just because we spend time on it, but also because our offense and how we play, both in practices and games, it allows them to develop their skills as well because they're using them.
Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train and, more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com. Coach, a lot of coaches follow you and learn from you a ton, and maybe even your own staff. Like hypothetically, if your staff was to watch this, which I don't know if they would, but if they would, the speed round is going to help them know you even better. So, do you have a few minutes for the speed round?
Let's do it, man.
Okay, quick questions. First thing that pops in your head: favorite ice cream flavor?
Ooh, chocolate chip cookie dough.
Oh, that's a good one. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
Thanks, Coach. Texting or talking?
Ooh, depends who.
That's the best answer. That's the right. I don't mean that anybody that's not answered that way. I'm not saying you're wrong, but
sure.
That's the best one.
I do text a lot. Anyone that does know me would say I'm texting probably virtually nonstop. But there's just some people I want to get on the phone with. Some things that require a phone call for sure.
Yeah. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Ooh, I would say the 70s and 80s. So I could see my dad whenever he was young.
Nice. Oh, on your dad. Where in Pennsylvania? Because I'm from there. I grew up in northeastern PA.
Okay, so they're all in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, nice.
My whole family there. I grew up there and love them.
Awesome. I love the state. I actually moved from Pennsylvania to Texas for basketball because I had a high school coach down here at a camp I went to tell me I could achieve my basketball dreams down here. Went back up home to PA, told my mom we needed to move. 2 weeks later we did. So
oh man.
That's investment right there.
Absolutely.
3 more. Favorite childhood TV show?
Sports. I mean, I really just grew up watching sports. I would say Penn State football. I'm still a fan if I'm allowed to be, but like very fond memories of watching with my grandpa and my dad.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
how many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
4 probably.
Nice. That's good, Coach. I don't like it when I hear these low numbers.
Yeah, no, I do. 1 at home and then a couple.
How do you drink it?
Oh, black. Yeah, black.
Right. That's right. How many? Or no, this last one, probably the most important. Godfather or Star Wars?
Ooh, Star Wars.
It could be neither. It could be neither.
No. I am Italian on both ends of my family, but I've never watched the Godfather films.
Wow.
So I would have to go with Star Wars.
Okay, the force is strong with you. I could tell, Coach. This has just been awesome, and I mean, from a personal level, just so excited to get you on and get to learn from you because of the similarities in how I think and what you teach. For coaches that want to follow you, reach out, connect, and then also talk a little bit about your website, your basketball website that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best places to follow me would be on Twitter. My handle is at my name, JOHN_Leonzo, which is LEONZO. I try to share a lot of things there. Really once a week, I try to do a thread right now. That's like the thing I'm working on of just what can I share? What am I learning? And again, a lot of that selfishly is more for me. I feel like whenever I teach or have to package something, it allows me and forces me to kind of get my thoughts in order and figure it out that way. I also share a lot of stuff on my website, which is just my last name, leonzobasketball.com. On there, a lot of drill videos, a lot of style play videos from our former program. And what we do now is tweaked a little bit, but a lot of the same concepts shown throughout. I really enjoy, like we had to say, I was at a meeting the other day and they asked for hobbies. And I was like, oh, one of my hobbies is I just like creating things, like I really enjoy making the videos. I really enjoy, building a website or video editing or any of that. And so this is just a really good way that I can align my passions, hopefully help other people. I know when I try to get into coaching, so many people helped me that I had no business in even like reaching out to, and they were so kind to me. And so if there is anything I have that I can share with other people, I love to do that, and just love the relationships that get built through that as well.
And I do want to say, from following you on Twitter, it's incredible to me, like the content that you do create and how you package it, but there's also an authenticity to it that's really special and unique. So for
Thank
those
you.
coaches that do want a really good follow, I do believe that you're one of those.
I appreciate that.
Coach, thank you so much for your time, man, and teaching all of us today. Like, this was incredible.
Oh, well, thank you. I've listened to the podcast before, and so to be on it and be able to share, I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.